Today, we will dive deep into the Holy Scriptures to explore a theme that has intrigued theologians, scholars, and believers for millennia: the most mysterious beings mentioned in the Bible. Have you ever wondered about the strange and enigmatic creatures that appear in the sacred pages? Who are these beings that challenge our understanding and imagination? What do they represent? And what is their true significance? Prepare yourself for a fascinating journey through the biblical texts, where we will confront some of the greatest doubts and questions about these enigmatic beings. We will unravel the mysteries surrounding these creatures, seeking to understand their role in the biblical narrative and what they can teach us about faith and the nature of the divine. So, without further ado, let's dive into this mysterious world and discover the 10 most intriguing beings mentioned in the Scriptures. 1. The Cherubim. We begin our list with the cherubim, celestial beings that appear at various crucial moments in the biblical narrative. But what exactly are cherubim? In Genesis 3 verse 24 we read, "After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life." These beings are often associated with the presence and glory of God, but their appearance is a true enigma. In Ezekiel 1 verses 5 to 11, the prophet describes a vision of these beings with 4 faces of a man, lion, ox, and eagle, for wings and wheels full of eyes. What do these complex descriptions mean? Are they symbolic representations or literal descriptions? And why are these beings so important in guarding sacred places? 2. The Seraphim. Following our list, we have the Seraphim, another class of celestial beings that defy our understanding. Mentioned mainly in the book of Isaiah, these beings are even more mysterious than the cherubim. In Isaiah 6 verses 2 to 3, we read, "Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, 'Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory.'" What does the name seraphim mean, which in Hebrew is related to burning or flaming? Why do they cover their faces and feet? And what is the significance of their threefold chant of holy? These creatures seem to be closely linked to divine holiness and worship, but their exact nature remains a mystery that continues to intrigue theologians to this day. 3. The Nephilim. Now, let's jump to one of the most controversial and mysterious passages in the Bible, found in Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Who were these sons of God? And what does it mean that they married the daughters of humans? And more importantly, who were the Nephilim? Were they giants, as some traditions suggest? Or were they simply heroes or mighty men? This passage has been the subject of intense theological debate for centuries. Some interpretations suggest that the sons of God were fallen angels, while others argue that they were simply pious men. The mystery of the Nephilim continues to intrigue and fascinate, raising questions about the nature of the interaction between the divine and the human. 4. The Leviathan. Leaving the realm of celestial beings, we encounter a sea creature of mythical proportions, the Leviathan. Mentioned in several books of the Bible, including Job, Psalms, and Isaiah, the Leviathan is described as a sea monster of unmatched power. In Job 41 verses 1 to 34, we have a vivid and poetic description of this creature. Can you pull a Leviathan with a fishhook or tie down its tongue with a rope? Who can awaken him? Who can stand against him? Who has a claim against me that I must pay? Everything under heaven belongs to me. What exactly is the Leviathan? Is it a symbolic representation of primordial chaos? A real creature, like a giant crocodile or some prehistoric marine reptile? Or perhaps a metaphor for the power of pagan nations? The figure of the Leviathan invites us to reflect on the power of divine creation and the limits of human power in the face of nature's forces. 5. Behemoth. Just as the Leviathan represents the indomitable power of the waters, the behemoth is described as a land creature of incomparable strength. Mentioned in Job 40 verses 15 to 24, the behemoth is presented as an example of God's creative power. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. What exactly was the behemoth? Some interpretations suggest it could be a hippopotamus or an elephant, while others propose it might be a prehistoric creature like a dinosaur. Still, others argue that the behemoth, like the Leviathan, is a symbolic representation of cosmic forces. The mystery of the behemoth leads us to question: what is the purpose of these descriptions of powerful creatures in the biblical narrative? What do they teach us about creation and the power of God? 6. The four horsemen of the apocalypse. Moving forward to the New Testament, we encounter some of the most enigmatic and feared figures of Christian eschatology. The four horsemen of the apocalypse. Described in the book of Revelation, chapter 6, these horsemen bring with them conquest, war, famine, and death. I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Then I looked, and there before me was a black horse. I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind him. Revelation 6 verses 2 to 8. Who are these horsemen? Are they symbolic representations of future events or forces already present in our world? What do their colors and the objects they carry signify? The interpretation of these mysterious beings has been the subject of intense theological debate and has fueled the imagination of artists and writers throughout the centuries. They invite us to reflect on the fate of humanity and the role of divine justice in history. 7. The living creatures of God's throne. Returning to the book of Revelation, we encounter another bewildering vision: the four living creatures around God's throne. Described in Revelation 4 verses 6 to 8, these creatures challenge our imagination. In the center around the throne were four living creatures, and they were covered with eyes in front and in back. The first living creature was like a lion, the second was like an ox, the third had a face like a man, the fourth was like a flying eagle. Each of the four living creatures had 6 wings and was covered with eyes all around, even under its wings. What are these creatures? Why do they have such diverse appearances and are covered in eyes? What is the relationship between these creatures and the cherubim mentioned in the Old Testament? These living creatures seem to have a central role in celestial worship, continually proclaiming the holiness of God. Their description leads us to question the nature of spiritual reality and how it relates to the material world we know. 8. The 24 elders. Still in the celestial setting of Revelation, we find another group of mysterious beings, the 24 elders. Mentioned in Revelation 4 verse 4, they are described as follows. Surrounding the throne were 24 other thrones, and seated on them were 24 elders. They were dressed in white and had crowns of gold on their heads. Who are these elders? Do they represent the 12 patriarchs and the 12 apostles? Or are they high-ranking angelic beings? Why are they dressed in white and wearing crowns? The role of these elders seems to be one of worship and governance, but their true identity and function remain a mystery. They make us reflect on the structure of the heavenly realm and the role of created beings in divine administration. 9. The angel of the Lord ***. Returning to the Old Testament, we encounter an enigmatic figure who appears at several crucial moments in Israel's history: the angel of the Lord. This mysterious being is mentioned in various passages, such as Genesis 16 verses 7 to 14, Exodus 3 verses 2 to 4, and Judges 13 verses 3 to 22. What makes the angel of the Lord so intriguing is that in many of these appearances, he seems to be more than just a simple celestial messenger. In some cases, he speaks as if he were God himself, and those who encounter him react as if they have seen God face to face. For example, in Exodus 3 verses 2 to 4, we read, There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, "Moses, Moses." Who exactly is the angel of the Lord? Is he a pre-incarnate manifestation of Christ, as some theologians suggest? Or is he simply a high-ranking angel speaking on behalf of God? And why does he appear at such critical moments in Israel's history? The mystery of the angel of the Lord invites us to reflect on the nature of theophanies, divine appearances, in the Old Testament, and how God chooses to reveal himself to humanity. 10. The beings like a son of man, ***. Finally, we arrive at one of the most enigmatic and theologically significant figures in the Bible, the being described as like a son of man. This figure appears in visions in both the Old and New Testaments, most notably in Daniel 7 verses 13 to 14 and Revelation 1 verses 13 to 16. In Daniel, we read, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All peoples, nations, and men of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed." In Revelation, John describes, "Among the lampstands was someone like a son of man, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet and with a golden sash around his chest. His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like blazing fire." Who is this being like a son of man? In the New Testament context, this figure is generally identified with Jesus Christ. But what is the significance of this description? Why does it appear in both the Old and New Testaments? This mysterious figure invites us to reflect on the nature of Christ's divinity and humanity, as well as the concept of divine kingship and final judgment. We have reached the end of our journey through the most mysterious beings in the Bible. From the cherubim guarding Eden to the Son of Man reigning eternally. We have seen a gallery of creatures and figures that challenge our understanding and fuel our imagination. These mysterious beings are not mere curiosities on the pages of Scripture. Each one invites us to reflect deeply on the nature of God, the spiritual reality, the purpose of creation, and the destiny of humanity. They remind us that there is much more to the universe than what our eyes can see or our minds can comprehend. The descriptions of these beings, often enigmatic and symbolic, challenge us to look beyond the literal and seek deeper meanings. They invite us to exercise our faith and imagination, recognizing that the kingdom of God is far greater and more wonderful than we can conceive. At the same time, these mysterious beings remind us of the greatness and power of God. They show us that the creator of the universe is infinitely more complex and majestic than our limited minds can understand. As the prophet Isaiah says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Isaiah 55 verses 8 to 9. But what can we learn from these mysterious beings? What lessons do they bring to our lives and our faith? 1. Humility. The existence of these beings reminds us that there is much more to the universe than we know or understand. This invites us to humility before the divine mystery. 2. Worship. Many of these beings, like the seraphim and the living creatures, are constantly worshiping God. This inspires us to place worship at the center of our lives. 3. Respect for divine order. The celestial hierarchy represented by these beings reminds us that God is a God of order, and that each creature has its role in the divine plan. 4. Awareness of the spiritual world. These beings remind us that there is a spiritual reality beyond the physical world we see, and that this reality interacts with our world in ways we do not always understand. 5. Eschatological hope. Figures like the horsemen of the apocalypse and the Son of Man point us to the future, reminding us that history has a purpose and a final destiny in God's hands. 6. Reverent fear. The powerful and sometimes frightening nature of some of these beings, like Leviathan and Behemoth, inspires us to have a reverent fear before the power of God and creation. 7. The mystery of the Incarnation. The contrast between celestial beings like the cherubim and the figure of the Son of Man helps us appreciate the mystery and wonder of Christ's incarnation. 8. Complexity of revelation. The varied and sometimes contradictory descriptions of these beings remind us that divine revelation is complex and multifaceted, requiring careful study and interpretation. 9. Imagination and faith. These beings challenge our imagination and invite us to exercise our faith, believing in realities beyond what we can see or empirically prove. 10. Purpose in creation. Each of these beings, no matter how mysterious, has a purpose in God's plan. This reminds us that we too have a unique purpose in the divine creation. As we reflect on these mysterious beings, we are invited to expand our view of God and the universe. We are challenged to recognize that there is much more to reality than what our eyes can see or our minds can understand. As the Apostle Paul says, "For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears." 1 Corinthians 13 verses 9 to 10. These mysterious beings remind us that we are only glimpsing a small part of a much larger picture. They invite us on a journey of faith, discovery, and continuous wonder. They encourage us to seek more knowledge, more understanding, but also to embrace the mystery and wonder of the divine. And you, dear viewer, what do you think about these mysterious beings of the Bible? Which one caught your attention the most? How do they affect your understanding of God and the universe? Don't forget to leave your comment below, sharing your thoughts and insights. Your perspective is valuable and can help others deepen their understanding of these fascinating biblical mysteries. And if you enjoyed this video and want to explore more intriguing themes from the scriptures, be sure to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. We have much more fascinating content to come. Until next time, and may God, in all his majesty and mystery, continue to surprise and amaze us every day.